Alright guys, welcome back. This is BadSenator. So, Connor Lamb, the Democrat, has won the Pennsylvania special election. He won by 0.2 of a percentage point, and it was a very close race. I was up all night looking at the result. I went to bed before it was projected. So, yeah, and as we can see, we have the PA18 special election right there. Now, what we're looking at right now is the polls. I'm analyzing what the polls said about these races and how accurate they were and what party they tended to lean towards. So on the first column right there is the election. It was so Kansas 4th election, Montana 1st congressional district special election. These are all special elections, by the way, after Donald Trump was inaugurated. Alabama Senate, Pennsylvania 18th, that kind of thing. The second column, which is poll margin, is what the polls said the margin was going to be in those races. The actual margin is what the margin turned out to be when 100% of the precincts came in. And the deviation is how wrong the polls were and what party favored from them. So when you average it all up, Republicans had an average of 7 points of advantage in the polls. Republicans had an average of 3.2 margin when the polls actually came in, but those two numbers are relatively meaningless, and that's just because the special elections aren't really representative of the midterm elections. So I wouldn't really pay attention to those numbers. The number you should pay attention to is the number to the right, which shows that the Democrats usually did better than their polls suggested, and they did 2.3% better on average than the polls said they would. Now, if you're looking at it, you might be like, wait a minute, that doesn't add up. 3 plus 2 plus 2.3 is 5.5, not 7. Well, if you look at the little star thing, I put 4 races, then I halved the deviation when calculating the average, and that's because of dysfunctional polling. Now, in the Kansas race, there's only one poll. So one poll obviously isn't going to, get a good, average, get a good forecast out of. I'm halving the Montana special election because all of the polls in that election were taken before the body slamming incident. Now, this is obviously bad polling because it's the polls, like everyone was polled before anyone knew that Greg Gianforte had done that. And that's what the polls were based on, a populace that didn't know that Gianforte had done what he had done to that reporter. Now, obviously, the results of the election were based off of that, because it already happened when people went to the polls. So, obviously, I think, that's not good polling. So that's why I put a star next to that one and made that dysfunctional polling. And with the Utah one, there were too many third-party candidates to really, have that be a good representation of what actually went on with the polls in Utah. Like, there are just so many third-party candidates that also had pretty big deviations from the polls and the actual margin. So that was pretty dysfunctional polling, too. And the Alabama Senate race, Roy Moore, I hope it's unanimously realized that he is a pitiable, and he was, doing all this bad stuff. And I think that, you're going to get a lot of people in that scenario who are going to, say they're going to support Roy Moore, especially in a red state like Alabama, but then actually aren't going to go out and vote for him because, they can't get it in them to vote for someone who did something like that. So that's why I put all 4 of those races as dysfunctional polling. And that's why I have them. And there we get the averages. So now let's crunch the numbers here. Only once were the polls wrong. Out of the 9 races, only once were the polls actually ever wrong. So, good for the polls. Now, in 3 cases in Pennsylvania, in New Jersey, and in Alabama, you flipped the incumbent party. So, in 3 out of the 8 elections with Republican incumbents that were special elections that were polled, out of those 8, 3 of them had a change in party. So that's obviously not very good for the midterms. It's like I was saying that 3 and 8 Republicans are going to lose their seats. That's not good. In fact, what I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to make like a few models to this Senate race. Like I want to make like a few models like based off of this data on these special elections. I call it BadSenator's models, and it's basically predicting Senate and House based on special elections. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to post that stuff in a later video. But yeah, and as you can see, we had the polls saying that there were going to be six wins for the Republicans. In reality, there's only 5 wins for the Republicans. So that's some more data you can ingest. And yeah, so I just want to take a look at the numbers. Here's why I'm actually thinking that this number here at the bottom right could actually be R plus something in the near future. There are 2 more special elections until the midterms, Arizona and Ohio. In both of those races, I would be very, very surprised if a Democrat won in Arizona, and Democrats are definitely not going to win in Ohio. There's pretty much a 1% chance they win in Ohio. So, yeah, I think those races, like, they're going to be like Republican wins. They're probably going to be like Kansas or South Carolina. Democrats improve on their margins, but they don't quite make it. And I'd be willing to say that with the Democrat base being more vocal, that the polls are actually going to favor the Republicans a little bit. And I think that Republicans are going to win these 2 elections, and they're going to get more than the polls said they would, and that gives them the momentum in 2018 in the midterms. And this is the thing, though. Rick Saccone ran a really bad campaign. Even a lot of Republicans said Rick Saccone ran a really bad campaign. So you're not going to have Republicans exactly repeating that mistake in their congressional districts. And you had Democrat Connor Lamb, who was perfect for his district. Perfect. And obviously, you're not going to get many of those Democrats if you're facing a primary with a much more liberal electorate. So all in all, I think that Pennsylvania 18 special election, it didn't go for the Democrats because of Trump. It went for the Democrats because everything went wrong for the GOP and everything went right for the Democrats. And I see no reason as to why things will keep going that way with the reasons I have just mentioned. So yeah, those are my thoughts on the special elections. There's some data right there. You can interpret this as you want. And I'll see you guys tomorrow with MHC. Thank you for watching. Bye.